So have you ever had the question, what have you done for the fee you've earned? What have you done for what I've paid you? Well, how did that make you feel? Did it make you anxious? Were you scrambling for answers? Were you even questioning your own worth and your own value? Is it really even possible to quantify value? And what does value even mean? I think, in my opinion, well, after today's episode, you will never feel like this again. Well, that is if you implement what we talk about today.
This is Propulsion, the podcast for forward-thinking and driven and ambitious financial planning professionals. It is the catalyst to the exponential growth of your financial planning practice, your business, or your franchise. This is where professionals come in order to learn about the latest technology, to learn about best practice when it comes to running and managing their business, as well as marketing, sales, relationship building, the best and most valuable interviews with local and international guests, and a whole host of other things. Without any further ado, here is your host, Francois du Toit.
Morning, Francois.
How are you?
Very well, and you?
Awesome, thank you. See, you're not even out of breath after all those push-ups and sit-ups and running in place.
I think guys like Russell and the guys who are in the gym are the ones doing the push-ups and sit-ups. It's a bit dark here in Cape Town, so I have to wait for it to be a bit lighter before I can get out there.
No, awesome. Edden, just a warm welcome to the show. I really appreciate that you're here. I've been looking forward to our conversation for a long time. And there's lots that we need to talk about, so I'm not going to waffle on this morning. Yeah. What I do want to sort of just quickly do an introduction to say, Edden, you're the head of business solutions, which is quite interesting because usually you have head of business development or head of new business or client acquisition or something like that. Sure. Your role specifically says business solutions.
Yes.
So what does that entail?
So I think just to your point about business development versus business solutions, we have a fairly flat structure at Portfoliometrix. I'm one of 3 members in a business development and a distribution team. But my primary focus, along with my colleagues, is to nurture the relationships that we have with existing partner firms and also uncover and develop new ones. However, I have a history in, I suppose the easiest way to describe it would be practice management. And it's something I've been very interested in and very passionate about, is helping advisors be more efficient, creating efficiency in their businesses and helping them grow in a manner that is sustainable. So I suppose in a way the title says it all. It's trying to uncover the solutions that help advisors be better at what they are in terms of how they operate their business. And that is such a broad topic because it encompasses so many things. I may not be a compliance expert or an investment expert per se, but it's about combining all these elements into an efficient manner or in an efficient manner within a financial planning firm or a financial planning practice.
And it's great because, honestly, I feel like a lot of investment management businesses don't get involved on that side of things. Yeah. So it's quite interesting. I think I was part of it. If I think I'm getting old, I'm forgetting. But I definitely was part of a panel discussion at the Financial Planning Summit last year that I moderated, by the way. So I was definitely there. And one of the things we were asking, because, there was another investment platform that was part of that conversation. And we were asking, because they're also getting more involved on the practice management side of things. And, I think investment management firms sit with so much information about clients, about the business, about all sorts of things. It's actually mind-blowing that so few have decided to get involved. Do you think there's a particular reason why they avoided that?
So, look, I think when you're and let me just state, clearly, Portfoliometrix is an investment management firm or a DFM. I mean, that's probably a term that has popped up over the last few years. So that's our primary objective. But we, as an investment management firm, are trying to deliver precision investment management, but the critical component is that it's connected to expert financial advice. The experts out there that are delivering advice to clients. So when we receive a particular mandate to implement a particular portfolio for an investor, we have no idea about how the advisor arrived at a particular implementation option for a client. Now, if we ignored the peripheral aspects to that it would be to our detriment. So understanding how a particular business operates, how they go about delivering and dispensing advice, how their processes and procedures stack together is critically important for us as a business to deliver a more encompassing and a more holistic proposition. So, again, to go back, we're an investment manager, but all the other components are critically important to this concept of delivering expert financial advice in a manner that is to the benefit of the end investor or the end client.
And also, I feel it's in all our best interest to basically have a business, a financial advisor's business be sustainable. And often, and I find this in my business at the moment. I was having a discussion with somebody yesterday afternoon to say, you know what, like it feels like my thinking is like this is the way I think. Like, yeah, like this the bubble might be big, but it's not getting beyond that. I'm not coming up with new thinking or seeing where there's maybe place to be more efficient or whatever those kind of things will, is. And often you need somebody from the outside to come and tell you, but why don't you just do that? That's happened to me in my business before. I was like, I wrecked my brain for weeks. And then, this person goes like, why don't you just do this? And I go like, oh, why don't I just do this? So having this outside sort of, I don't want to call them consultants or things like that, but this outside input from somebody who's external, but who has a vested interest in you being successful is invaluable.
I mean, spot on. I think, Francois, one thing that we mustn't underestimate is that, I'm talking specifically around the Portfoliometrix advisor community, but I also know many advisors who are not part of that, let's call it immediate community, the broader community. There are world-class advisors in South Africa. And the thing that strikes me is how willing everyone is to share. So yes, having an external party potentially say, have you thought about that? Have you looked at this? Is critically important because it allows an advisor to almost step back from their business. But, for me, a very, very important component is that dealing with multiple advisors within and outside the Portfoliometrix community, I've made many observations and I've learned a fair amount. And I think the ability to use that coupled with the amazing willingness of our advisor community to share with each other is what really has the ability to propel this profession forward. And there are so many people doing so many things. I mean, if you think of Louis doing the XY Advisor podcast, you've got Kobus who has his coffee with young advisors. I mean, I don't want to single out people, but you can go on. Dirk Groeneveld, who runs these little focus groups with young advisors. There are so many people doing so many wonderful things to assist advisors. But sorry, I'm going on a bit now. But to your point, having someone step in from outside your business, look at it critically, and help you as an advisor or your practice to improve and to become more efficient is possibly one of the greatest wins that one could achieve for the financial practices out there, especially for some of the younger folk coming into the industry or the profession, I would prefer to say, and who are looking to grow and build their businesses.
Yeah, and and it's also not just about giving answers to people and saying, oh, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? Right? It's more about asking critical questions that, oh, I never thought of that. Yeah. And then it gets you down that path as well. And this support, because, when you're young and you're new, you have a lot of knowledge, you have a lot of energy, you have a lot of drive, and you have a bold vision and a dream and things that you want to go after. And then you hit the bump and then suddenly your confidence takes a knock. So having somebody that you can check in with and talk with. In our business, what we're starting up is called a board of advisors. So this is outside people. It's got nothing to do with what we do in our business. They're not part of the business. They are not like anything. So they actually do what they do and we do what we do. And they are from different areas. It's not only from financial services, because I feel there's a lot of value in learning from how others do it from other places. And also I believe a lot of the things that our clients are going to start asking for from us is going to come from what they experience in other areas of the economy. So they will experience a new service or an app or something and say, but why don't financial services do this as well?
Francois, I mean, I can probably mention something that I experienced a number of years ago, and you spoke of this concept of a board. And it was a suggestion I made to, and in fact, I'd run 2 or 3 of these, or helped run 2 of these financial planning business advisory boards. And what it, in brief, what it entailed was getting together 8 to 12 of a firm's clients, preferably with quite a varying skill set, age, demographic. So you perhaps have an entrepreneur, a widow, a plumber, I suppose that is an entrepreneur. You have someone who may have been a corporate executive, and you get them together around a table and you pose your challenges and the things you're grappling with to these trusted clients, and you bring them closer to your business. And as I said, I chaired 2 of these a number of years ago as a third party, because it required sort of a third party influence on it. The value that those advice firms achieved through having their very own board, it was incredible. What it did do, it ensured they didn't go down the path of developing things and doing things that clearly clients were not interested in, but it also highlighted the areas that clients valued. It also highlighted the gaps that advisory practices or firms may have had in their service offerings. So bringing your clients closer to your business, asking them, and I know this sounds crazy, it's free advice. So, use your clients to develop and propel your business forward.
Yeah, that's spot on. I want to get into the value of advice, which is quite an important topic, and which is really the main topic for today. And it's something that I've spoken a lot about on the show. I've spoken at with different FSPs. I had this discussion around this, that talks about this. I know this is a very important thing. And as I said right at the beginning, has it ever happened, like, somebody asks you, like, what have you done for this fee that you earned? And that's one thing that I'm also sort of been professing, because I realized this when a client, or it was actually my dad, said, geez, but I paid that amount of money, like, why? And it was particularly on the platform that he paid a certain admin fee to, because he saw it in rands and not the 0.5%. And I think we love quoting fees, for example, in percentages, etc. It doesn't seem like much. But you start looking at the rand amounts, people are going to start noticing that because transparency is now through the roof, the reporting is now like being done in a sustainable and a well-maintained manner. So these things are clear, and they're going to start looking at, and a lot of advisors, I think still feel that, it's all relative. 10% on $1 million is the same. Well, it's not the same, but if you have 10% on 10 million, that rand amount is also the growth that you had was exponential to that. So when it comes to value, and somebody asks you, what have you done for this 30,000 rand or this 50,000 rand or this 100,000 rand that you earned for the year from me, like there's all sorts of feelings like, oh, like I did, and some people will have good answers, and I think some people are going like, oh my word, I've never really thought about this. We just do what we do. We've met with you once a year. We've given you feedback. We've changed all your debit orders, your addresses, like all that kind of stuff. So I'm excited to get into this, and just to set the scene where this also comes from is to, there was several different studies done by different people. So if you go on Google, you'll find them. You have Vanguard, who said, well, having an advisor can add up to 3% per annum to your overall returns in the long run. So that's quite significant. I've seen what a difference 0.5% makes. So 3% is quite significant. Russell Investments said 4.4% you can add, if you have an advisor. International Longevity Center said that advised clients, in other words, clients that got advice, by the time they retired, had 50% more pension wealth than those who did not, or only got advice once off. So this is about ongoing advice versus once-off advice. And then the University of Montreal that said, savings of advised clients over 15 years were 2.73 times, so 2.25 if you talk Harry Potter language, versus non-advised clients. So it's almost 3 times as much because they got advice. So that's all the advice. But my question now becomes, let's start at the beginning. Is it even possible to have a standard definition for value? And what is your take on that?
So I mean, in a short answer, I would say no. I don't think there is a standard definition, because value means different things to different people. It's how I perceive it. So take, for example, something like an artwork. My wife loves art. We walk into an art studio and she's, oh, this looks amazing. What do you think? And I go, no, I don't really see much. There's no value in it, optical or, perceived value for me. So there you have a fantastic artist with a fantastic artwork, apparently, and we perceive it differently. So, I mean, I'm not a practicing financial advisor, although I do have my CFP designation, but I employ a financial advisor. And, going through that process with the advisor, it took me a few years to almost have that aha moment and being able to articulate in my own words how I saw the value of what I'd experienced with that advisor. And the interesting thing for me, and I'm different to the next person and to you and to the next person, but the overriding and overarching theme that kept coming up is I have peace of mind and my affairs are in expert hands, and I have complete confidence that they have my best interests at heart. That to me is value. Now, I haven't looked at money. Yes, I'm paying them a fee. But what I'm getting is being able to sleep peacefully at night. So there's a value concept there. If I then look at another example where an advisor, world-class advisor, had a client come to them and say, the absolute value, the nominal value of my annual fee to you is substantial. And I'm questioning it. The advisor then went and did a detailed exercise, which turned into an 11-page document of the value they had added, but they'd quantified it, not quite cents, but in rands. And if you saw how this particular client's situation and affairs were structured and the savings that had happened, it far outweighed that annual fee for years and years and years. And the client sat back and said, okay, I get it. Thank you. I'm happy. And I can tell you it was a substantial annual fee. So there are two different stories about how people have, I suppose, perceived advice and the value for advice.
And you touch on such an important thing, Edden, that I actually, where I was headed with this, right? Isn't it like values in the eye of the beholder? Is it that it's up to us to lead the person until they get to where you were? You realize, like, well, I can intrinsically trust this person. They have my best interest at heart.
Yes.
That for you was the value, because that trust gave you peace of mind. It said,
yes,
whatever I may, I can rest assured that this oak isn't going anywhere.
Yes.
And that they will look after me properly. So does that then mean, as I said, like value is different from everybody's own vantage point? And then, if that is so, how do we lead them maybe down that path to say, well, because if something is it about understanding what's important to them and then sort of highlighting that that's exactly what you deliver to them, or so I've got a million questions, but let's stop there. So your thoughts?
So look, I think the key aspect, and again, this is my opinion, is have I been heard? Has my situation been understood and reflected in whichever way the financial planning firm or advisor is going to implement my strategy, the path to achieving my goals? And it covers everything from investments to risk. There may be a will involved. All those areas form part of a holistic plan. So, I think that what I'm looking for in talking to an advisor, have I been heard? Have they been able to use their skill and expertise to interpret my desires, my goals, my objectives into a financial plan or into some sort of structure that I can look at and go, they've got me, they're walking this path with me, I'm in good hands. That's simply, for me, what is critical. And I think related to that is therefore, what is important when trying to uncover those things? It's empathy, it's asking the right questions, it's understanding goals. Yes, there may be a product at the end of it or an investment at the end of it, but we're in a relationship. I don't want to call it a game, that sounds wrong, but we're in the business of relationships. So what should be the most important factor or factors that allow you to develop that relationship into something worthwhile, meaningful for both parties.
And you touched on something very important, that because a big question in my mind was, do we only need to demonstrate value when it comes to investing? Like when there's real money on the table, how much additional growth did I give you? How did I prevent you from making mistakes, et cetera, et cetera? So is that really what it's about? Like it's only about that, or was it about the bigger part? So and I think you rightly said that there's also estate planning. There's getting all those affairs in order.
Correct.
There is looking at maybe business structures. There's all sorts of things that play a role. So if I understand you correctly, you're saying that demonstrating your value should not just be linked to investments and investment management.
Not at all. And I mean, so I think that the key is that if you end up in front of an advisor as a client and you share your situation, what would hopefully happen is that the advisor would interpret all of that and say, look, what we need to do is, we need to pay off debt. Well, actually, all we really need to do is change a provision in your will. Or in fact, you have too much life cover. Let's reduce your life cover. So it's a far more holistic view than just simply investments. You could potentially, I can give you a personal example. I had an engagement with an advisor that really was all about making amendments to my will. There was no investment, there was no product. It was literally a clause in my will that would, through changing it, mean a significant difference in the potential value of my estate for my beneficiaries. Now, how do you quantify the value of an extra 500,000 or R1 million in my estate? There's no product there. It was the skill of an advisor noticing something that could be amended that would change the lives of my beneficiaries potentially. So, advice is a broad, all-encompassing thing. Investments is just one part.
Absolutely. So, and sort of early on, I shared all these different studies that were done and things that were like sort of that the different investment houses are saying. But Portfoliometrix also did their own study. And what they sort of looked at was let me not do that, was create a white paper called The Insider's Guide to the Value of Advice. And I want to get a little bit into what is it that you found from this, because you also, although Portfoliometrix is a worldwide company, basically, you've got offices in other countries, not only in South Africa. But you involved some financial advisors and young financial advisors, which I think is absolutely critical for to get more of a balanced view, if you will. So let's talk a little bit about this. I did actually last night put the links down below. For some reason, it's not showing in the description. I'll put it there again once the show finishes. So you will be able to download this as well as the other document we are going to talk about. But let's get into this one quickly. So, what were some of the top findings for you on this? Because like something had to stand out, and what was that?
Yes. So I think the first thing is there is value in advice. It may sound obvious, but I think in trying to understand what advisors felt was important. And let's just be clear that this was a sort of a paper that was based on feedback from advisors. So I think it would be quite useful, and that may be something we want to do, is to look at the end client and try and understand it from their point of view. But the overwhelming, I suppose, areas in which advisors felt the importance lay were around soft skills and building the financial plan. So the soft skills, that were critically important were things like empathy. I mentioned that earlier. Understanding a client's life goals, providing peace of mind. And the other thing was simplicity. Jeepers, we live in a very complicated world at times. Clients want simplicity, yes, and I say this with the utmost respect. We have the engineers and we have the accountants that may require a few more numbers and a bit more detail, but simplicity is something that is critically important when dealing with clients, and also developing a very personal financial plan. So the areas that were of importance lay more with I suppose, relationship building, engagement with the client that would be sitting opposite an advisor. Those were the key areas. And I think something that is becoming more and more important and is this idea of behavioral coaching. So many clients may not feel like they want to be coached by an advisor, but an advisor's ability and the skill to be able to guide clients through difficult times. I mean, think about what we've been through in the last few years. We've spoken about floods in Durban, COVID, the war in Ukraine. These are times in which our brains are being bombarded by information. How do we make sense of it all? So having advisors holding a client's hand, helping them from a behavioral aspect, through empathy, through understanding, and through the transitions in life is critical. And I think that's the important thing. When you build a financial plan, you're building it now, today, but things are moving quickly. What are the key transitions, planned or unplanned, that a client may go through during the course of the relationship with the advisor? And what are the areas that will benefit the client most in navigating those life transitions?
Yeah, and it is about I think keeping it simple. And it is. I mean, as you say, not taking away from anybody with extreme skills and expertise and things, but that is also where the extreme skills and expertise lie. It's for us to understand the complexities and the things. It's not to make it to show. It's almost like I always say, like, can a doctor just talk to me in English? I don't even understand English, but it'll help. So it's the same with us. We shouldn't try and demonstrate how well qualified and how well versed we are in this topic and then make the client feel like, oh, I can't take part in this conversation. So I think that's absolutely critical. Another question is then, like, listening to everything that we've spoken about, like, some people say we can quantify value. Other people is more like, but it's more what it means to me. So I can't really I just know it's important to me. So is value then an objective or a subjective thing, or is it only about justifying our fees?
Look, I certainly don't think it's about justifying fees. I think it's about adding value. That to me is the critical part. And I think if we go back to some of the earlier discussion, there's a very objective element to it. In terms of, well, am I adding value? But the subjective experience of it. So how I experience the value added versus the next person versus the next person. I think that to me is critical. So the question is, am I adding value? And I'm sure all the advisors that are on this call, the ones we deal with, they most certainly add value. But yes, the way it is experienced and interpreted by a client is what will, I suppose, really drive home the importance and the degree of the value.
Yeah. No, I fully agree with that, and I sometimes wish that there's things that we talk about on the show that I don't agree with, but I think that's the thing. I think we're attracting all of the people with the same beliefs and the same sort of thing. So I need to go look for people where I can disagree with, but it's so important. And I think one thing I believe in very strongly, Edden, is principles. So you got to follow the principles, and I also believe that all these principles have been figured out over the years. It's not that we have to go and listen and try and come up with something weird and wonderful. There's certain business principles, there's certain financial advice principles, there's investment management principles, there is just caring about your client kind of principles and client experience principles. And those things are all true. How we apply it in different scenarios, be it virtual or in person or excuse me, or during a pandemic or whatever happens, that is something that one then adjusts to, but the principle will always remain the same. So how can financial advisors demonstrate advice, the value of their advice, from a practical point of view?
So I think for me, one of the greatest value adds an advisor can deliver is asking the right questions. And if you really think about it, if I were an advisor and a client sat down in front of me who I potentially know very little or nothing about, how am I going to be able to, in future discussions, be able to deliver meaningful, valuable advice by asking questions? So if we, as an advisor, profession don't ask the right questions, it leads to potentially substandard advice. So for me, the thing is asking the right questions. And the old adage, we have one mouth and two ears. So spend a lot of time listening. Try and extract from clients why they've come to you, what they're trying to achieve. And there are a number of studies that also say it takes multiple meetings as the trust grows for clients to open up more and more and more about themselves. I mean, talking to a potential stranger, in most situations are not going to divulge every secret, every desire, every thought that you have about your own situation. So I think something that makes it very difficult, if I were going out today to buy a car, I could walk in, and I know we wouldn't do it, but if I had a briefcase with my cash in it and I walked into a dealership and I said, that's the price of the car, here's the money, they give me the car, drive out, there's an immediate exchange of value. The advice process means that I, as an advisor, potentially have to spend hours and hours and hours engaging with someone for them to gain a level of trust in me, be more open. So if we, as an advice profession, can speed that up by making ourselves vulnerable as advisors, asking the right questions, trying to elicit the right responses from the clients, will speed up that trust building process. So there is a level of intimacy that is required, and I don't mean it in an inappropriate way, but both the client and the advisor need to show a level of intimacy. That's the only way you extract the relevant information to develop a truly meaningful financial strategy and plan.
Awesome. As I said, the link to download the Value of Advice white paper from Portfoliometrix is down in the description below as we speak. I hope it's saved. I did add it now as we were speaking. So you can go and download it there. And then, so that's, this whole thing around value is such a wide conversation. I can have 3 more hours of this conversation with you, and I probably would want to. So I'll chat to you when we're done with the show. But the other thing, to really, I think, extract value or to create value or to deliver value comes also down then to business efficiency. Unfortunately we only have 5 minutes left, but I want to quickly touch on this because Michael Kitces did a study as well, which sort of got this thing started. I think you put this document together. And there were some certain things that he highlighted, that there's certain things that advisors said that these would be the biggest gains for them. And these are, the 5 biggest challenges, basically. So what were those?
So what we did was we used a survey amongst advisors. And I think that the catalyst for it was the fact that so little time is spent on client-focused activities and, in fact, in client meetings. And that's what the Michael Kitces paper and survey sort of highlighted. And through our own survey in this business efficiency paper, the top 5 areas that advisors desired improvements and efficiency gains revolved around business scalability. So how do I grow my business without necessarily adding more and more staff? And then a big one, Francois, that comes up all the time is the preparation of review reports. I could spend an hour talking to you about the situations I've observed, but that building of even a proposal report, but review report. Acquiring new clients was another area, and then tech frustrations. That's a whole sort of topic on its own. So those are areas in which advisors felt they could be more efficient. But the areas that they felt they had the greatest concerns was developing a young client model. So we know about sort of the various generations and dealing with various generations. So that is an area that is of concern to advisors. Compliance. So the formalities, always a concern. Unprofitable clients. Again, I could tell you stories about unprofitable clients and where advice firms have a more than 50% level of non-profitable clients. You cannot operate a business like that and be sustainable. And then I think 2 other key areas, and we're seeing this more and more, is how do I find and attract quality people into my business? And then finally, another great concern is succession. We know what the demographic of the profession looks like, but how do advisors, either through planned succession or even the unplanned stuff, we're aware of, situations where there has been unplanned succession through an advisor passing away and the complexities around that. So, as I said, there is a short paper on it, but those were very briefly in the time we had left, just some of the areas that efficiency is lacking and potentially some of the areas of concern that advisors are feeling.
Yeah. It's a very interesting guide that you've written there. And it is, what I like is there's research, and then there's your own research, and then you bring all of this together. So, well, does this hold true for our advisors here in South Africa, or probably your client base as well? So very interesting and a very good one. So that's also linked down below in the description on the YouTube channel. So if you want to download, it's called the Business Efficiency Guide. So you can then find the link there to go and download it. And very early on in this discussion, we just briefly touched on Portfoliometrix. And, one of the things that really stood out for me, and I heard this when you were on Louis' podcast as well, is this thing that you're looking to connect expert financial advice with precision investment management. I mean, that's a bold statement, and it's a great thing. It's something that gives me a bit of goosebumps, I must admit. So, if people want to get hold of you and talk more and listen and find out from you how you actually do this and what it can mean in their businesses, where can people get hold of you?
So I'm on LinkedIn. That's probably an easy one. And then, email is also very easy. So it's my name, Edden.Kift, K-I-F-T. So Edden.Kift@portfoliometrix.com. And I'd be very happy to have conversations. I love talking about these things to advisors. So I'd happily speak to whoever would like to have a chat.
Awesome stuff. Edden, just from my side, thank you very much for your time. It was an interesting conversation and something that I definitely want to continue. I've got loads more other things that I want to talk to you about, but I will chat to you after the show. So thank you very much for your time. Have a fantastic weekend. And
thank you, Francois. I've really enjoyed it. Thanks very much for the kind invitation to join you. Thank you.
It's a big pleasure. Thank you very much. All right. And just like that, we get to the end of the show. Thank you to everybody that was involved today. Really appreciate it. Remember to subscribe to the channel and like this episode if it was of great value to you. And we'll see you back next week, same time, same place. Have a great weekend. Stay safe, be blessed, and remember to raise the bar. Love you. Bye.
Thank you for listening. Remember to check out the live show, Propulsion Live, on YouTube every Friday at 7 a.m. South African time. You can find it at www.propulsion.co.za/live. That's propulsion.co.za/live. And please remember to subscribe, share with your colleagues, your friends, and anyone who may find value like you did in this podcast. Once again, thank you very much, and we'll see you in the next episode.